So all of these lectures are going to be recorded in video format. There's going to be PDFs of anything I write out on the screen. When I write stuff on the screen, so instead of a whiteboard, I'm going to use the tablet. But still, when I'm writing stuff, just take notes the way that you would if I was writing on a whiteboard. Today, there's not probably too much for you to take notes on. Maybe later on we'll get to some stuff. But for the first bit, I'm just going to go through the syllabus, the structure of the class. I know more than half of the class has taken other things with me, and the format is going to be just like those. So, and if you have any questions, let me know. We got plenty of time to do this. After I'm done talking about the structure of the class, we'll start getting into some of the preliminary mathematical stuff that we need for the class. Okay, so first of all, the most important thing you need is you need to be able to get into D2L. To do that, go to the main Normandale page. And up in the upper right, click on that drop-down menu, go to current students, and then there's a thing for D2L. Everything in this class is going to be on D2L. Anytime I give a new assignment, anytime I update grades, anytime I make a correction, I'll mention it in D2L. So you want to look at D2L once a day or so, you know. Click on D2L, log in. I know most of you have done all this many times before. Let me know if you have trouble getting in, though. I can point you to the people who can help you. Okay, so when you get into D2L, you'll see all your classes that you're taking. This is dynamics, so click on that. And the first thing you see when you get in is the announcements. This is the thing you want to just glance at every day. If there's nothing new in announcements, there's nothing new that you have to worry about. But anytime I give a new assignment or whatever, I'll put a note in here. Okay, so this is what you want to look for. Then later on, once I start grading things, the grades will be under assessments, grades. Most of the materials are under content. That's funny because there's a thing called materials, but ignore that. That's a red herring. Go to content. And then there's a few sections now. There'll be a few more sections added. Course information is where the syllabus is, so that's where we're going to spend most of our time. But after every class, I'm also going to give assignments from these assignment problems. You can see there's a few categories. And so, like, for example, if it says, you know, the assignment for Wednesday, January 10th, is vectors problems 1 through 6. Then you go to the assignment problems, go to vectors, and you need to turn in assignments 1 through 6 in here. Okay. There are also solutions posted. So let's see what we got here. Not all of the solutions, but a lot of them. So hopefully, if you have trouble with one of the problems that I've assigned, you can find sort of a similar problem that has a solution posted. You can go to that, and that can help get you unstuck. I also try to do a lot of example problems in class, so you know, look for those too if you're stuck. And then also, you know, come to office hours or talk to each other or send me a message or whatever if you need help. Okay, so problems. And then old lecture notes if you want to. So I'm also going to have a section that's current lecture notes and a section that's current lecture videos. But those only go as fast as I'm going because it's what I'm saying each class. So if you have any interest in reading ahead, sort of skimming what topics are coming up, feel free to, go to old lecture notes. It just goes class by class, but you can sort of see here's what we did on February 13th of last year. I drew this cool picture of a guy on a bicycle. Talking about relative motion, blah, blah, blah. You can sort of see what topics are coming up. Anybody have any questions about the layout of D2L before I go into the syllabus? Okay, so course information. So if you go to that, there's the syllabus. There's a vector review document. There's some stuff we'll use later. There's also some programs for TI-89 and TI-84 programs. For calculators, I mean. That won't be so important in dynamics, but I know a lot of you are also taking DForm, and these are going to be super important in DForm. You're not going to want to do this class without these programs entered. So in DForm, we'll spend a little time early on getting you set up with these programs. I know everyone has slightly different models of TI calculators mostly. TI calculators are great, but they change the programming environment pretty drastically, like every iteration that they do. So we'll have to just take a little time and make sure you get this entered in your calculator. All right. So now what you've been waiting for, the syllabus. So here it is. It's a 3-credit class. So that means 3 hours of class time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at this time. One thing that I want to say while I talk about the number of credits is if you Google how much time you have to spend on a class, a college class of a certain number of credits, there's a very standard answer. It's 2 to 3 hours outside of class for every hour inside a class. Okay, so this is a 3-credit class. So you should be spending 6 to 9 hours on this class outside of that class time. Okay. There are definitely professors who are like, this is engineering. It's the most, whatever. It's difficult. So you're going to spend more than that. I'm not like that at all. Honestly, if you spend, I think for most people, if you spend legitimately, consistently 7 hours a week on this class outside of class time, that's enough to do well in this class, There are some people that need more time than that, but I think for most people, that's a reasonably good guide. An hour a class every day, 7 days a week outside of class time, okay? If you don't have the time, everybody's schedules are crazy now. Student schedules are crazier than they used to be. A lot of that is because school has gotten so much more expensive. People have to work more, and I know that's beyond people's control. But if you don't have that amount of time available to devote to this class, I would just recommend not taking the class because you're just kind of setting yourself up for a bad experience. And when I say working on this class, so I say 7 hours a week. Well, sometimes the homework, you do the homework and it doesn't come out to be 7 hours. So what does it mean if I haven't given you 7 hours of homework to do to spend that time on this class? Well, if I think of what it means to do well in this class, it means two things. It means, so there's no textbook in this class. The only information that you're responsible for is what I say in lectures, okay? And honestly, a lot of what I say in lectures is bullshit. You can ignore that, okay? But the stuff that where I'm talking about dynamics, doing well in this class means remembering the stuff I say in class and remembering how to do the problems I assign, okay? That's all there is to this class. And if you can remember, even, it doesn't have to be word for word, but you can remember the flow of the topics we discussed, what I said about those topics, the important parts of those topics. If you can remember that and you can remember how to do these problems, you'll absolutely, ace every test, ace every quiz, do great in the class. So if you have extra time, just get in the habit of taking that extra time to read back through your notes, Like when you take a biology class or a chemistry class, you spend a lot of time going over and going back over and back over stuff. I think a lot of times in mathematical classes, people don't really do that. But I think it can benefit you in every class. If you come out of a class remembering what you talked about, it's just such a big advantage as you go on. So, okay, I know when I was in college, I would get done with classes and I do all the homework and it would be hard classes and stuff. But at the end of the class, like if somebody asked me like, oh, what was that class about? A lot of times I think I would have had a hard time answering that question. So, I'm trying to encourage you to sort of think about that because it helps you store that information, Okay, my name is Gaio Lakin. Please just call me Gaio. My office is right down the hall here, 2302. You probably won't go to my office much because I do my office hours in the tutoring center, but that's where it is. There's my email address. There's my phone number in the office. The best way to get a hold of me is actually D2L messages. That's this up here. I'll check that every morning. It's just organized so nicely for me that it makes it easier for me not to miss messages that people send. With my email, I just find I miss messages sometimes because so many are coming in and they're not all related to students. So yeah, if you use this, I'll be better about I will do my best to get that to you right away. There's the class information. Office hours are Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Tuesdays and Thursdays are 2 to 3:20. And Fridays are 12 to 1:50. And that's in the tutoring center. The room number is here, but it's basically like if you go down the hallway this way and turn left, it's the big glass room right in the middle of the school on the second floor. And I like doing my office hours there because there's places where you can work. And there's seating for lots of students if, more than one student at a time comes in. So even if you don't have any specific questions, if you're around during my office hours, just feel free to go in there and work on assignments in there. And then I'm there if you have any questions. Maybe other students will be around you can talk to. Okay. The prerequisites. These are the new prerequisites, new this semester. Statics is no longer a prerequisite. And so the stuff that I used to require from statics, which wasn't a ton of stuff, I just have to talk to you about before we go into it, but that'll be fine. But the prerequisites are Physics 1, Calc-based Physics 1, and then Calc 2. We also used to require all the, yeah, there used to be a lot more requirements, but this is going to work fine. Materials needed. You don't need a textbook. And while this class is going on, I don't even recommend a textbook. What I recommend is just don't go to outside sources. Just make sure you understand what I say and try to keep remembering what I say. And if you don't understand something I say, talk to each other about it or talk to me about it. I'm always happy to try to clarify stuff, you know. I've done the best I can to boil down, you know, a large chunk of a textbook into a small amount of information that's what you need to do this stuff, that you need to carry on, and that I want you to try to remember. So that's sort of my philosophy on that. The recommended reference books, if you want a reference book for after you're done with this class for later, these are two good ones. The Beer, Johnson, and Cornwell book, that's the one they use as a textbook at the U for this class. That's why I chose that one. But it's a full textbook, so it's expensive, but it's good. And then the second one is the Shams Outline. If you haven't used Shams Outlines before, these are great. They cost something like $25 each. They're paperback. They have concise little descriptions of every topic. And then they have tons of problems with solutions. And so it's a good way to, like if you're, you know, some of you maybe later will have to take some kind of standardized test on this material. It's really nice for getting ready for stuff like that. I used a lot of these as I was getting ready for my written prelims in grad school. Okay, here's a list of the topics that we are going to cover. We're going to start with a vector review. How many people here, I mean, I guess everyone who's done Physics 1 has done some stuff with vectors, right? So forget that question. So I'll give you some stuff to read, and I'll give you some problems to work on. It won't be a review of everything you've learned with vectors. It'll just be focusing on the stuff that's going to be important in this class. Then I'll do a little review of what you need to know from calculus for this class. And I will introduce simple ordinary differential equations. So this class uses a lot of differential equations, but you don't have to have ever thought about those before. We'll just talk about what we need. And then after those two, we'll get into kinematics of particles and kinetics of particles. Anyone remember what the distinction is between kinematics and kinetics from Physics 1?
Kinematics is like the math behind motion. And kinetics, I guess, is a more theoretical backdrop.
So yeah, that's really close. The kinematics is like the mathematical description of the motion, okay? But it doesn't deal with any of the causes or anything. And then kinetics, you throw in the causes, which mean masses and forces, energy, stuff like that. Okay, so we'll start out by so basically kinematics, you can think of that as just position, velocity, acceleration, relationships between those. And then when we get into kinetics, we'll start using Newton's laws. Okay. Energy of particles. And then we'll go from talking about particles. So what's a particle? I think a lot of people think like a particle is something small, but that's not necessarily true. Really, it's just the way that you're treating a certain object. it's a sort of an idealized version of an object where the object is treated like it exists just at a single point. And so you don't know anything about its how its orientation is changing, how it's spinning, anything like that. And then we'll go from particles to treating objects as rigid bodies. Rigid bodies are things where you do treat them as having lengths, you know, a length dimension this way, a length dimension this way into the page. Then you do start to worry about how the orientation of this body changes over time. And so there's just some new math that we need to use for kinematics of rigid bodies, and then new math for kinetics of rigid bodies. And then there's energy, and then we'll finish with mechanical vibrations. Grading for this class is going to be 90, 80, 70, 60. I used to always say 92, 82, 72. This is the first time that I've, but like people always complain because I said 92, 82, 72. And because they're like, that seems unnecessarily high. And the actual reality was I always went down to 90, 80, 70, 60 anyway. So that's what it is. And if it turns out that I need to curve this class to get the right number of people in the A range and B range, I'll do that. But this is you have my promise that if you get 90 or above, it's an A no matter what the curve is, you know. If you get 80 or above, it's at least going to be a B, you know, that kind of thing. The grade is broken down into 10% lecture quizzes, 10% daily assignments, 30% weekly assignments, and 50% exams. So now I'm just going to go into what all of these things are. So the first one, lecture quizzes. These are just, every couple of weeks at the end of class, I'll give you like a 5-minute kind of thing that's short answer questions about what I've said in class up to that point. So this is how I'm encouraging you to go back to your notes and reread your notes and try to remember what the notes say. Okay, there's not going to be any calculations in the lecture quizzes. It's just going to be me asking you about sort of what I consider big topics, big questions from the notes. You know, I'm not trying to trick you on like minute fine detail. I just want you to read your notes and then a couple weeks later, read them again. A couple weeks later, read them again, because that's just member stuff. Okay. There were a couple things for the people who were in my classes last semester. A couple things were kind of haywire for me last semester. And it led to there being very few lecture quizzes, very few weekly assignments, and nothing got graded on time and stuff. But it's going to be better this semester. That stuff is all I have plenty of time to do all this. So the lecture quizzes will be more like every other week than I said it was going to be last semester, and it wasn't. But this semester that'll be closer to true. And then at the end of the semester, the lowest 2 quiz scores get dropped. So if you miss a quiz or two, or you do badly on a quiz or two, that's okay. They don't show up in your grade. Then the other thing that's worth 10% of your grade are the daily assignments. Those are the ones I mentioned before. After every class, I'm going to give you some number of problems from that set that's that's under content. Okay. And to turn those in, you're going to take a picture of them and either and so you're going to take a picture or scan them. You're going to have either PDF files or picture files, and you're just going to submit those files under assessments, assignments. And I don't have any on here yet to show you, but there'll be a section that says daily assignments, a section that says weekly assignments. Under that, it'll say assigned on Wednesday, January 10th. And so that's where you'll submit your files. For these, I'm not going to grade these. I'm just going to check off that you've done them or not, and so but it's important that you do them because that's how you learn to do these problems that are going to be evaluated on the weekly assignments and the exam questions. So if you turn in stuff that is incomplete or whatever, I'm going to still mark you off as having turned it in that day. But the problem is, like, the stuff that I am going to evaluate carefully, the weekly assignments and the exams, you're missing out on understanding important things that you would need. So really, I mean, it's up to you to do this, but if you have stuff that you don't understand in the daily assignments, come talk to me in office hours or send me a message or something, and we can straighten it out. Also, at the start of most classes, most days, I'll ask if anybody has any homework problems you want to go over. And so if you have a problem with a homework thing you don't understand and the solution for that one isn't there, feel free to just ask me. I'll go through it up on the board. If you have trouble, it's almost certain that you're not the only one having trouble, so just let me know. Okay? Okay. Okay, so that's the daily assignments. Oh, and I'll drop the 2 lowest daily assignment scores also, which just mean, there's going to be 3 times 16, what's that, 48? Something like that number of daily assignments given. If you miss 2 of them, they don't affect your score.
What are they doing that?
I make them do the next day, the next class, to keep you on track. I can give extensions. That's not a big problem, but really I'd like you to do your best to stay on schedule, not because I care when I get to look at them or anything. I'm not going to look at them anyways. But just because if you're not understanding those topics, getting practice with it before you hear the next lecture, you're really missing out on, building this structure to this information in your head,
So best practice was that day?
Yeah, you always have 2 days, or on the weekend you have 3 days. I do think there's a benefit to getting started the day. Like, if you really want the best practice, do half of it the day of the lecture and half of it the next day. Or even do it the day of the lecture and then do it again the next day without looking at it. Any other questions about that right now? And then the weekly assignments. Now we're to the 2 things that make up the bulk of your grade. This is 30% of your grade and 50% of your grade for the exams. The weekly assignments are going to be like daily assignment problems, but I'm not going to give you the solutions, and I am going to evaluate them in, the way I would evaluate exams. One thing about the weekly assignments is I'm always going to be, it's not going to be just on the current material. I'm going to, on these weekly assignments, have you going back and looking at old stuff. That's just my way of, keeping you remembering the stuff we did before. The work you turn in on these needs to be your work. Feel free to talk to each other about it, but you should be able to do the thing you submit to me, you should be able to do by yourself. You know, once you've talked to people, gotten an understanding of what to do, you should turn something into me that you do by yourself, you know, without just copying down something that someone else showed you. You know, for this to be like an honest, your submission of the weekly assignment, it has to be here at some point before you write it down, you know. It can't just go straight from your eyes to your hand. And then now there's also Chegg, you know, the website Chegg, and there's a couple more that have appeared since then. These websites where you can turn in a problem, and in a day or two, their experts will, you know, give you a full solution. I don't tend to have problems in engineering classes with those websites, but that's clearly cheating. And I feel like I can pretty much always identify when somebody is going through the problems the way I teach you to go through them, and when somebody's following them, you know, a totally different method. And when I see that, I'm like, I better look into this more. And then I go to these websites, and, you know, often when that happens, I just find that exact line for line solution. Like, usually I can find that stuff. So please don't go down that path. And the weekly assignments, so say there'll be maybe 6 weekly assignments or something. The lowest score for your weekly assignments gets dropped from your grade. So even if you do badly on one, that doesn't affect your score. And then the last part of your grade, 50% of your grade are the exams. So each one is worth 12.5%. The final is worth the same amount as the other ones. One thing to remember is these are all cumulative. So you're not just studying material since the last exam. You want to go back and look at everything up to there. By the way, I'll say this again as we get closer to exams, but I think a good way to get ready for exams is just go back to the daily problems and just one by one, just look at them and ask yourself, how do you go about doing this? And if you know how to do it, if you can think in your head, oh yeah, I do this, cross product, blah, 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 then obviously you're pretty good on that one. You don't need to spend a lot of time on that. But when you get to the ones where you're hazy on what to do, those are the ones to spend a little time on, you know? And I think with that approach, you can get through all the problems without, you know, having to actually go through every single problem all the way through again, you know. And then there's a sort of mulligan thing that I do on the exams where if your exam 4 is higher than any of the first 3 exams, it'll replace the lowest one score. Okay, so what that means is, like, if you get all 90% except you got a 30 on exam 2 or something, like you just really bombed one, you didn't have time to study or whatever, the 90 on your exam 4 replaces that 30, and it's like that 30's gone. If your lowest score is exam 4, then that's just kind of bad luck. I don't have a way to fix that, but your exam 4 will always count as itself, but it can replace a lower score if you have a lower score before that. Anybody have any questions about any of this?
Is exam 4 during finals week?
Yes, exam 4 is the final. Yep. Oh, and there's the schedule of the exams. So you can look at that and let me know if you have a conflict with any of those. I can be flexible with that, but that's when we're doing those tests.
Are those exams taken during class time?
Yeah, so that you'll take a full class time to do that test. And then the exam 4 will be during our scheduled final period, which I don't know off the top of my head, but it's already available. Yep,
The exams are for people.
50, yep. So, yeah,
I already know that's like not big enough for me.
yeah. Well, yeah, I will say, I mean, anybody who has a lot of trouble with fitting in exams during class periods. I mean, I think I had somewhat that wasn't a great strength of mine going through school. I felt like time limits were always a little hard for me, and it wasn't super hard for me. I know, there's people who it's a lot harder for. I just dealt with it and did my best. But now at Normandale, we have this really nice OSD office that can, if you think you have trouble with stuff like that or any other kind of trouble that, that affects your test scores, I'd really recommend going and talking to them, and maybe they can set you up with accommodations to have a little extra time or whatever. I'm not allowed to provide those extra accommodations in this class, but if you go through them, then it's all done by them. So, but yeah, 50 minutes, I mean, it's hard for me to write tests for 50 minutes. And I should say that I always make a serious effort to not make the test about fitting it into this time limit, I always try to make my tests a little shorter than the time that's allotted, so you have time to look at a problem, think about it, maybe make a start and realize it's wrong, and still not feel like you're racing against the clock to get done. I really try to do that. But
What's the like general composition of the exam?
the exams, okay, so the quizzes are just short answer questions about the lecture. The exams are 100% problems that reflect the daily problems that I've given you. So if you know how to do all the daily problems up to that point, then I think you'll have no trouble with the exams. I don't really, I know a lot of times you'll see exams where people are really trying to make you think about material in a new way, see how well you're able to, think through stuff. I don't have anything against, I like that idea, but I don't do it that way. I pretty much just want to see that you've done the work, and I want to see you show that, show how you did the problems when you did them before, basically, It's not like it's exactly the problems given on the daily assignments, but every exam question I give you, you probably could find one or two daily assignment problems where you're like, oh yeah, the method is the same as the method on this one, Any other questions? Okay, well, hey, have you seen if you go down in the main entranceway down there, there's a big TV that shows like, that shows little like quotes from like famous people, like the most important people, and I'm one of them. And the quote, actually, now I'm not sure this is the quote, but I gave, so maybe that's not true. Okay, but anyways, I did this they do these like profile things for Instagram too, and they asked for some quotes, and I said that, they said, what's your advice for students, And I said, just, don't think like, okay, things are slow, I have time to catch up, whatever. I'm going to ease into this class. Just right on the first day, as soon as you see the assignment, just go do it, put in your time, read your notes, reread your notes, get in a good habit, figure out like a schedule that's going to work with this class. And I really think building that good habit right at the start helps a lot. And I really think if you just start out, put in your time, do the work, ask me questions when you get stuck, you're going to have a really good experience in this class, and you'll do well, and you'll have a knowledge of this material that you'll be able to carry on to the next stuff. Okay. I am going to rest my voice until B-Form. So that's the end of class today. But Friday, my voice is going to be powerful. Okay. Talk to you later.